All right, we are live. Welcome to Nerd Side Champs. This is our second week of coverage on Skeleton Crew. And, well, we don't have any special guests to start today. We might have some very special guests dropping in, though. You never can tell on Nerd Side Champs who
That's
will or
right.
won't be there. Yeah,
What's life without whimsy, people? What's life without
yeah,
whimsy? It's crazy.
yeah. But
So,
you do have the OG Nerd Champs. We are both here in effect. You have Dan and Tim hyphen subscribe to at Nerd Champs. Let's go ahead off the top and see what we got for our first comment. Barry Allen is slower episode this week. Still a good overall story. So, what was your key takeaway? It kind of sets us up this week. What did you feel about the episode that we got?
I think it was. I mean, that pretty much nails it down. It's not as action and swashbuckling and all that kind of stuff as what we had seen in the first week with the first couple episodes. I did think it was kind of interesting doing the escape and doing all that kind of stuff, and then there was like the little transport thing where they were kind of shooting at them as they were leaving. But other than that, there really was not a lot. There was not a lot that was actually, action. It was just pretty much that kind of stuff. So I think overall, I think they did a good job. The story moved forward, and actually, kind of what they had done with this episode is kind of what we had talked about. How they kind of had success in The Mandalorian by kind of compartmentalizing it almost like a video game plot. Like,
Yeah.
go to this place, meet this person, find this thing, and that's exactly what they did. And so that those kind of plots work really well in the vein of a Star Wars universe in a series. And so I
Yeah.
like that Disney is doing that. It kind of keeps the audience engaged even when there's not a ton of action. But yeah, there was not a ton of action in this particular episode.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a mystery as a huge part of your plot, you're going to have episodes. You're going to have periods. Like if it was a movie, you wouldn't notice as much. But when it's a show, it takes up a whole episode. You're going to have 20, 30-minute sections where you're going to get the exposition, where you're going to
Mhm.
talk and explain what the mystery is and then unlock the mystery at the same time. So that a lot of that happened. We did have the high stakes hand-to-hand combat of Jude
Mhm.
Law and the owl woman, Tim.
Yeah,
That
of
that
course.
was
And she wasn't really just an owl. She was like an owl badger
yeah.
cyborg combination. It was some weird thing. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. Well,
And
she had a
they could
mouth.
have
She did not have a
they
beak.
could have absolutely chosen a really, really interesting name for her, but they just went with Kim. Okay, like
Yeah.
whatever works. So there you go.
I think it's spelled really weird, if that helps. It's pronounced
Yeah,
Kim, but it's spelled with some Y's and apostrophes.
that's
You
a
know,
yeah.
if you
Got to
saw it
do
on
it.
paper, you wouldn't come up with Kim. So
Gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
Definitely more CGI this week versus practical.
I did not care for Kim as a CGI character. I will say that, and I think that it almost reminded me of in Force Awakens, Maz and a
Yeah.
Force Awakens, when you've got this very integral character with a very clouded past that you're introduced to, and then they kind of hide her until the reveal, and then you're just like, that's really all they could come up with, was like this cartoonish almost. It really is disappointing because this is Disney, and we're talking about one of the foremost innovators in animation, and I've seen them do very, very flawlessly executed animation in Star Wars. I mean, Rogue One it comes to mind. The Peter Cushing that nobody really knew was animation, unless you knew that Peter Cushing was dead, which most of us did, but
Yeah.
the millennials didn't know that. And so I do feel like a lot of us that have seen them do it are just asking why they can't do it consistently, and that's kind of the problem that I have with it. But
Yeah. I don't think they really dropped the ball so much in character design
yeah,
or concept. It's just I don't know where Disney lost the ball on this, but somewhere within the last 10 years, 12, I don't know, but Disney took a massive step backwards in
Yeah.
CGI.
Yeah, and I think it's deadlines and trying to meet all these deadlines for
Yeah.
these Rust projects. I think that's part of it. But I agree with you. I think they took a massive step backwards. I just don't think there's the dedication to making it as flawless. And I think a lot of it is directing and camera work and lighting. A lot of that stuff really kind of covers up. When Spielberg did it in Jurassic Park, that was flawless. That's how you do it. You do it with the lighting and make it so that people, and in Rogue One, that's kind of what made it with Peter Cushing. That's what made it work, was the lighting, and a lot of it was in the reflections and all that kind of stuff in the glass. There really wasn't as much to kind of give the tell that that's actually not him until you get real close. So I think that they just haven't really gone that direction on these characters very well with Disney. I think that they need to re-examine that, because they kind of have taken a step back. And we were giving them major bravos last week for doing practical. This is something you could have done a puppet for. You could have done a puppet for close-up scenes with this character, and it would have worked really well. So I don't really understand why they didn't do that.
Because when she takes off flying, then they have their little flight, you don't see her face. Yeah. And so that could have been CG, because that CG is fairly convincing, because it doesn't have to move, doesn't have to talk. So that part could have been CG, but the parts where she's talking could have very easily been practical. And I feel like the technology may have advanced to a point where they've convinced themselves that they don't require as many man hours. I think they've convinced themselves the technology is further than it is. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, we don't have to spend all this time anymore. But actually you do. That I don't know. Because nothing I've seen in the last 10 years is as good as the Hulk was in the first Avengers movie.
Nothing. Not even the Hulks that we've seen since then. And I think that there's a lot. I mean, Disney has to really, really decide. I think if this is what they want to do, they've got to buckle down and do it right. I think the schedule isn't helping. I also think just the inconsistency of the crew, like who's actually doing it, isn't helping. You know what I mean? You got, if it looks good, you got to have the same people just continue to do it. But you got to turn out as much content as possible, and so that's where we're at. So
Crimson Jack is a nod to a character from the original comics of this. I read that somewhere.
I read that too. It was actually, I think they said it was in the original comic that was released in 1977, and it's not a character that has anything to do with Jude Law's character. This is just kind of a nod to that. The name is just kind of a nod to that, is what I understand. So it has nothing to do with that character. It's not supposed to be that character. But I thought that was very interesting too, that they did that. So little Easter eggs. The thing is, the things that gave me pause coming in before I watched this show are actually fun Easter eggs. If they took this too seriously or spent too much time on it, it's the kind of things that they have done that ruin shows, like throwing in the Hollow show from the holiday special, or having a Teak from the Ewok specials. And I'm like, oh God, there's going to be a Teak character. You're going to be watching this little fast Teak the whole time. But no, it's there. It's an Easter egg for those of us that have suffered through the holiday special and the Ewok films, and it's fun. So that's another. And what it is, Dan, it's an opportunity for nerds like us to get on here and talk about it, for other people to hear us talk about it, and then they know that those things are on Disney Plus, and people are going to go click on them. That's actually the only reason they're doing this, and so it's kind of a fun little thing for them to kind of bolster the clicks on the older content and kind of stir up a little bit of talk about that as well.
Yeah, you can subscribe to Marvel Unlimited probably. And go online and read the old comic books digitally. Also, sell a couple of subscriptions to that, or at least buy the digital comic for a couple dollars. So
I'm not gonna lie. I was in the comic book store this very week, and I started looking for the originals. Of course, I couldn't find them, but I started looking for the originals just to see what was out there. So
I actually have the Marvel Unlimited, and it's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
it
want
is.
to read them on a phone.
I'm
Use
not.
a tablet.
Yeah,
but-
digital is not really my favorite way to read comic books. I tried that, but yeah, I understand why some people it's really a good efficient way. So yeah,
Yeah, because you get it on a tablet, and like I've been rereading Amazing Spider-Man from issue number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now the investment I would have to make, even in trade paperbacks, to do that.
Oh sure,
Would be outrageous.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, so this episode, I walked us through last week. You want to walk us through what happened? Oh, wait. We have somebody here.
Oh
Boom.
my goodness.
What's
Look at this
up?
guy. Look at this guy. I wish we would have promoted him. I wish we would have
I'm in
promoted
between
him.
baby shifts, so I've got a good 10-15 to mix it
Hey,
up with y'all.
rock and roll, man. Rock
All
and
right.
roll. So
However y'all want to take it.
So
let's just go ahead and give us what you thought about this episode, man. Just go ahead and break it down.
You know, this is interesting. It's interesting to talk about a Star Wars show and not just be filled with rage, just pure rage. It's like I don't really know how to handle it. Now,
Yeah.
I assume most people that are watching it are giving it some grace because it's clearly made for kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. Other than I don't know if kids are actually watching it. Like that's the weird part about the viewership.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it. There's parts
That's
I really
kinda-
like.
That's where we're at. I kind of think we need to wait. You know, Disney has fooled us before. They can pull the rug out anytime.
True.
But
It's true.
to this point, I'm not gouging my eyes out, crying the fetal position, sitting in the dirt. I'm not doing all that stuff yet. So yeah.
do you have the mixed feelings, Bumberger, like I do? Like when Disney does a good thing, you kind of have mixed feelings about liking it. You feel bad that you like something they did. You're like,
Yeah, because it's like why is it good? Did Kathleen Kennedy not care about it? Because that would be the reason why it was good. She ignored it, and people were like, just did a thing. And no Dave Filoni, no Favreau. This was just its own thing. Is that why it's good? Is it just because it's not them?
It's almost like Kathleen Kennedy was just like, go make that stupid kid show, and then they ended up making a good show because she was so hands off, you know.
And that makes sense. Andor's that way. It's the only director that can do whatever he wants is the Andor director because he's big money director, and Kathleen Kennedy couldn't hire him and tell him what to do because he's not, gonna do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm interested to talk about it because if I'm being critical of it, I think it's a few steps from being great. And I think they missed the boat on 2 characters so far. It may change, but I think the main kids, the guy and the girl that you're supposed to like, the main ones are the weakest characters. Everyone else I think is solid across the board. All the support, all the costumes are great. All the design of the like aliens are great. I feel like in this one.
Yeah.
But I don't like either of them. And they should be a little likable. Like the elephant guy or elephant's cool. I'm down with that. And then the Geordie person, I'm cool with that. She's cool too. But I don't know. The 2 main are the only ones I hope come around to get a little more likable. Like he is not likable. So far.
He's a little too naive by half. Like her being smart and him being dumb. That okay, whatever.
Yeah,
but like
that's
he's a little
for what
smart.
Yeah.
He's a little too dumb. It's like
and he doesn't make up for it with anything that's like really like he's not like overtly brave or overtly like there's no redeeming quality there where he's not just naive. Like Luke is naive in the beginning, like he wants to be a rebel, but he's also like capable, brave, willing, like I do like the introduction of Jude Law's character. I do think that's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
and they didn't kill him in the first 5 minutes of the show, which the top build cast member. You can't just kill him in the first 5 minutes of the show.
It's a great point.
Yeah. We didn't stretch this out. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say this week, immediately he runs into one of the other pirates who points out that he was the captain that we saw at the top of the first episode.
Right.
So they didn't try to make a non-mystery like we've been,
which was good.
Way too much.
Yeah.
And I like how they didn't dance around if this was the Acolyte, they would have drug on for about 4 episodes, whether or not he was actually a Jedi. whether or not he was actually a Jedi. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, no, he's not a Jedi. He's a scoundrel, and he's lying to the kids. Okay. They made all that very clear very quickly in this episode, which I appreciated. So
Yeah.
I thought the one of the weakest parts for me, and I don't know, it's like the dynamic on the world with the kids is, it's this prosperous, like advanced civilization, which is different. We hadn't really seen that, but then they made it a little relatable, which I didn't like. I wanted more weird stuff. Like it looked like a normal bedroom of a kid with their toys and all their stuff and their iPad. I wanted something that was like, okay, that's a Star Wars fun thing that would be ridiculous. Like it felt too familiar in that aspect. Like I was hoping to be a little more. I wanted it to be more silly.
Yeah. This was definitely like when they first go outside and there's the sidewalks, the houses looks like a regular suburb.
It does.
Until it pans out and you see the architecture's slightly different.
Right.
But you could almost squint and think, okay, this is a US suburb.
Right. And that's a big difference between that and Andor. Andor managed to maintain the Star Wars feel in terms of the look of the buildings and like this is unusual living. And I don't know, it's like the creators of this show, the one thing I think they got a little wrong is Star Wars was always limited. Now, this is before J.J. Abrams, so I really shouldn't say this. There was always like certain rules to keep it primitive, but in space. Like it's in space, but communication's hard. Like it's really hard to talk across space. They did all these things that made it a little bit like it's a normal school. Like you're telling me school's still lame? Like you didn't make school cooler at all? Like
Yeah.
No, I got a very I was at the first 2 episodes, it was Charlie Brown. Like they were in there and the droid's teaching them. And I swear I replayed it back to see what the droid was saying because I was just hearing womp 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 womp.
Yeah. But a couple of missed opportunities in there, but that's just nitpicky type stuff, I guess. Nothing major.
And what we were just talking about before you jumped in, Bone Bridger, we were talking about how they kind of, the first couple episodes, we were kind of giving them major props for kind of going practical on the special effects instead of the CG. This episode, it did feel like they kind of fell back on the CG. When they have the little escape pod thing at the very beginning to get away, that kind of was all CG and weird when they got caught on the line and they had that battle and all that stuff there. And then when we got to Kim was probably the one thing in this episode where we all said, "Oh my goodness, that's bad CG." So, what were your thoughts on that?
It's I feel like this is the one project I can look at though, and where the budget is they're using their budget and it's not stretching to where they want to go, but they're getting close. It's not like the Acolyte where I know there's too much money and they just it's just garbage.
We can actually see it.
Limited.
This
is like.
We can see what they're using. Yeah, exactly.
Which that's a little more livable because it's like, okay, well, maybe they're building up to something they needed to maybe the payoff part will look smooth. Like that. Yeah. I'm okay with it. I do think this is building up to something exciting. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they do understand that it needs to have a big adventure aspect. Like,
I feel like
that's what Star Wars has been missing.
All this Old Republic tie-ins and stuff. This could be leading up to something very cool.
Having having the X-Wing and stuff like that was kind of surprising to me. Like I didn't think they'd even do anything like that. That was kind of cool. It just makes me wonder, like, okay, how, are they going to do something really fun? I want to see them have to do some kind of like, I don't know if it's a mission is the right word, but like, Andor has this incredible like heist thing, but it's really slow and it's like over 3-4 episodes. I want like a 20-minute segment finale type thing with this show with these characters that's like epic and fun and layered and a little silly where it really moves. Like that would be something that would be a fun ending where it's like, because Goonies build slowly to this the pirate thing. They get the treasure, they do all this, but it's that big pirate scene that's like such a big deal, the battle on the ship and stuff.
Now, and you touched on this saying like you don't know if kids are watching it, and I was talking about this last week. Generationally, I'm a Gen X person. I was born in '79. Tim's a little younger. Tim is what you would call a Zennial. He wants to believe he's Gen X. He's not really.
I'm totally not a millennial, Dan. You need to get that out of your vocabulary. Shut your dirty mouth.
Google it. You can Google it.
Okay.
Tim is now. You are a millennial, but we all live in flyover country, right? So that moves us back like a generation. The fact that I'm Gen X, I'm almost a boomer because I live in flyover country.
Yeah, of
and
course.
You guys are like Gen X millennials because you know. So I don't know if today's kids would understand this show because these are Gen X kids in space. These kids have drank what the intergalactic equivalent of hose water. You know, they play outside. They play with action figures.
Yep.
They have imaginations.
There, you can make this show for this demographic and it work. But what you needed to do was you can't have, and this is my take, but the 4 main characters shouldn't be from perfect lives with perfect families and perfect like money and all this. You got to have somebody in there that's like, you got to have oddballs. You got to have some underdogs, some rough around the edges. They don't, like they want the girl to be like this tough, whatever girl, but she's also from an affluent family with like important mother that's like really important apparently and matters, like who loves her, by the way, and is like over, like it's like okay, it's like
these are all like kids of a certain
you wonder if that mom, it's one of those, she's one of those moms you wonder if she's mad that the girl is missing, or you wonder if she's happy that she's getting attention that the girl is missing, kind of thing. And that's, it's like you just don't know, because this whole world that they've built has been kind of so that we know so little about it. But it's so odd. And one of the things did you guys notice? It's like they have the meeting with all the parents, and like 3 of the households are single parents. I mean, which I thought was just weird. You know what I mean?
That was weird. Yeah.
And so, So anyway, all that kind of stuff is just kind of odd. So, once again, maybe a lot of that'll be revealed as we learn more about the planet at Atten.
Like it all flies by because it's very Gen X. It's not just Goonies. And I talked about this is E.T. This is the Explorers. This is upper middle class kids in a suburb having an adventure. They're latchkey kids. Their parents aren't paying attention to what they do during the day, but they do love them. This is exactly what I grew up on. This was the bread and butter of the mid to late 80s kid movies. This is and like that's the thing. I don't know if other generations.
Fat Albert. This is Fat Albert. This is all those stories with the kids that just play after school. That's what this is. Yeah.
It's if Star Wars was in a different place, it probably received really well. If you didn't, like, if you rewind back in time, you can't fix the movies. They were gonna steamroll off into the darkness no matter what. But imagine if it was Mandalorian season 1 and this were the 2 things that came out. Solid. I mean, you wouldn't have, and the reception, the overall feel. And then what if it was Mandalorian season 2 and just Andor? What if that was the only 4 things that started out for Disney Plus Star Wars? You would have a whole different perception. But every time they do one thing good, they follow it up with something that is just so, like people aren't trying this show because of Acolyte and Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all the stuff they, and the kid thing. I don't know how you get, they don't even watch Disney Plus. Like it's parents show their kids Bluey, or it's adults watching Disney Plus, which is a crazy like jump. It's not even, Netflix has a lot of teenagers. They get a lot of that like 16 to 24-year-old demographic is huge on Netflix. Disney's just like no one, which is, it's just weird because they made this show for like middle school age type, technically, I guess, middle grade. I don't know how many watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that it's good. So I hope it would find that audience. But like you said, I don't know if it will.
It's a good point. It is good. So they can leave it on here. And over time, it could do well with stuff. It's not like Willow where you have to remove it because it's so bad that it doesn't help your brand or help anything leaving it on. At least if you have something good, you can just leave it there. And like, who knows? Maybe someone will find it and they'll really like it.
Yeah. And it isn't dumbed down for kids. Like all that stuff that was made in the 80s for kids, like essentially E.T. is a kid's movie. but nobody says E.T. is just a kids movie,
Right.
you know. So adults can enjoy it until the kids find it, you know,
Yeah.
if they ever do. So, yeah, I don't know. The captain, Jude Law. What do we think? Like, he's not a Jedi, but is it a total con? Do we think he's force sensitive? Where do we think?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you guys know the time frame in this when it was set?
This is after Return of the Jedi. So this is the very
Okay.
beginnings of the New Republic.
Okay. That's interesting. I wonder what his deal is.
I mean, he could have been a youngling, or maybe a young Padawan that survived the purge.
I think I don't think that would be something that's a can of worms that they would want to open up. I think we got a guy that's just working these kids for what he thinks is going to be a big payday. That's what I think. And he appears to be force sensitive, but the kids were talking about it. Hey, there are ways to make things look like they float. And so, who knows? We'll just have to see. But as they were escaping, wasn't he using the force for things there too? Or did I catch a couple things that he was moving and
on the ship? So he turned off the light. He turned off.
Yeah. See that. Yeah. So there's more than just floating the key. So it's hard to kind of nail it down to just that. But yeah.
And he's not going to be evil. They're not going to go that route. Where he's like full on Sith type situation.
Yeah. I'm getting Han Solo vibes, right?
Yeah. He's a scoundrel. Yeah. That's it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. He's out for like he might have the heart of gold. He might have the dramatic turnaround. Jonathan, that's Disney's MO the past couple of years. One good project. We got Jonathan from Comic Book Cinema. Yeah.
There's no quality control at all.
But it doesn't matter. Hey, here's the thing, people. It doesn't matter if it's the good project or the bad project. If Jonathan May sees it, immediately after he sees it, he will say it's amazing. So that's guaranteed 1,000%. Okay? It'll be the best thing that's ever come out for that franchise right away.
Positive guy.
I feel like
right.
we hit on it, though. It's the things that they're not trying to quality control that have quality. When they really care... they're trying to force quality, that's when it falls off a cliff. Jonathan, I'm thankful I wasn't reviewing Disney Plus shows when Willow came out. I'm proud to say
I just saw Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis finally spoke out about that. I just saw when they canceled it from Disney Plus. He's really upset. I don't know if he was banking on residuals or whatever. There were going to be any residuals. I mean, nobody's going to watch that series twice. Nobody. And Disney
doesn't really remove stuff, so it had to be next level bad viewership, which, I mean, that's what it was, but they were trying to hide it and be like, oh, it's successful. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think, like, how much does it really cost to keep that stuff on a server? I mean, you've already paid all the money to produce it.
Right.
Dan and I just watched the Ewok specials on Disney Plus. They won't even remove the Ewok specials.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they probably get like 15 views a month.
I mean, come on.
Let's see. So maybe Jonathan says maybe the cat was force sensitive Jedi that left training as a child. So yeah, he's speculating. Yeah. And we did figure out that, like, if you watched Clone Wars, even though the Jedis, like if you've seen the Acolyte, they travel the galaxy stealing babies because force-sensitive people are dangerous and they have to be captured as babies. But then if you get half trained and decide, screw this, I don't want to be a Jedi, like Ahsoka, they let you just walk.
With your lightsaber.
You're no longer dangerous.
They let you take your lightsabers, your two cool white lightsabers, and just walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, the untrained babies, super dangerous.
Yeah, but the dangerously trained one's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. The one who has rejected your path and your philosophy outright.
So good.
Totally cool. Disney also removed the awful Moon movie starring Kid Cudi.
I didn't know that. That's wild. Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow.
Did they
Well-
removed the did you guys watch the Willem Dafoe Husky movie about sled dogs?
Oh, I
Togo?
never saw that.
Oh yeah, I
Oh.
watched it. They removed
What was
that.
it called? What was
It
it
was
called?
called Togo, I think it was. That was
No,
the
I
name
did
of the
not watch
dog.
it.
Of course, it was like every other dog movie. It
Yeah.
exists to make you cry.
White
Standard.
Fang and Balto and all that. So
It all
it's
starts with
the same.
Old Yeller, and then
Of
it's
course.
just there. Yeah,
Of course.
yeah,
Guys, that's all I got time for. But
Brother, we
Live it up.
appreciate it, man.
yeah. We really
appreciate
appreciate you dropping in, man.
yeah, how
Thanks
many
for coming.
episodes are in this season?
think is it eight?
8? Is it 8? I
Okay.
think it's 8. So,
I'm interested to see. That's a solid 3. I'll give
Yeah.
those solid. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this has got
So-
interesting places to go. This mystery.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope the characters become like the even more fun once they start getting in the adventure. Like eventually, you got to get past the like we're scared we're on an adventure. Like embrace it. Be a
Yeah.
Goonie. Embrace it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
guys.
they had-
Good
they,
luck.
They have room to improve. That,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. Y'all
Yeah,
live it
definitely.
up. Enjoy.
Thank you.
See you,
guys.
Bone.
Thank-
Take care, man.
See ya.
Appreciate it.
See ya. Take care of that kid. Oh, Bone Bridger, everybody. So, yeah, this is, and Bone Bridger hasn't liked much of what Disney has put out for a long time, and we haven't either.
Mhm.
So, this is actually like, again, like he said, if they had just done like this and Mandalorian and like,
Mhm.
it is a shame that this is following on the tails of so much awful
Mhm.
because
It
you
is.
just don't know if it's going to find its audience.
Sure. So let me do a quick episode recap here, okay, and then we can kind of decide what we're going to do. So the episode opens with the parents of these missing kids. Okay, the robot has essentially said that hey, hold on, put Jonathan's comment up. I got to respond to this. Come on,
Is this? Hold on.
Next
hold
one.
on. Dan, that Backrock Inspire, Tim got to step up his game.
Bro, I got the Death Star getting blown up in the background with spaceships and X-Wings and stuff, man.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I got an amazing background here. What are you
Oh.
talking about? Anyway,
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry,
Yeah.
I had to respond.
This is every week. Yeah. Now, if I pan the camera to the left or right or down, you would see that Christmas
Yeah.
has vomited in
I
my
got-
house.
I got
there's
see,
just-
look at that.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of stuff going on, Jonathan. You just aren't paying attention, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Directly behind my head is my actual desk, and I have papers stacked right up to where my head is that you just can't see right now because I need to go through all the bills and the catalogs.
Hey.
Tim's background reminds me of the background in Agatha that Rio cut through.
I mean, you could cut through it. I'm not. That's going to be an honest take. So
Yeah.
zero lies told there. But it is awesome. This is the Death Star being blown up. Okay. So anyway, so we start out with the droids telling the parents, the droids that run the planet or the school or something, telling the parents that these kids have taken off and gone outside the barrier of At-Atten. Okay. They don't know where they're at. They don't know all that kind of stuff. And so everybody's kind of worried about their kids, obviously, but the droids seem to be more worried about the fact that somebody's outside the barrier. But anyway, that's kind of where we leave it. And then there's not really a lot of dialogue that leads us to anything there. Then where we pick up in the pirate port that they were at, where they were they were jailed. They had escaped because Jude Law got the key at the end of the last episode.
Yep.
And they got the key. They got out. They said, "Hey, why didn't you get out this whole time?" He said, "Well, I didn't have a ship. You said you had a ship, so that's why we're out." So he got them out, and they go back to the ship. They make it all the way back to the ship unseen, and then Fern says, "We've got to have SM-33. He's the one that is responsible for us being alive still. You got to go back and get SM-33." And he says, "We're not going back for a droid." She says, "Well, then I'm going to go do it." She was kind of like holding the ship captive, I guess. And then so he says, okay, so he goes back to get SM-33, brings SM-33 back to the ship. And in the midst of that whole thing, he is seen by a guy that recognized him, and basically the whole port starts chasing him on the way back. He gets tied up in the fuel lines and all this kind of stuff. It becomes this weird battle of him getting back to the ship. He gets on the ship and they take off, but basically, so they're going to have these pirates after them, as well as whoever else is interested in possibly getting this treasure that they're going to. So that's kind of where they go from there. As they're flying, SM-33 figures out very quickly that he is not a Jedi. Okay, the kids start deliberating amongst themselves. Is he a Jedi? Is he not a Jedi? They're sleeping. Some of them are sleeping. Some of them are not. And then basically what ends up happening is he says that he can take them somewhere where they can, he has a friend that will be able to decode where their home planet is, and he can help get them home. So they arrive at this place where they're going to meet his friend, which is Kim. And Kim appears to be, as we said before, part owl, part badger, part cyborg, part whatever, and she wears clothes, which is, all of that is odd, but that's what it is. And Kim is very good at coding stuff. Before they arrive, Kim has already told the New Republic that they are there, because she knows that Jude Law's character, who is nicknamed Crimson Jack, apparently, that he is wanted by the New Republic, and so she informs them that they're coming, and then as they're there, she starts kind of stalling. He explains that they need to get home and all this kind of stuff, and then when he mentions it's at Atten, she realizes what's going on. He's trying to take these kids so that he can just get the treasure at Atten, and she tells the kids that, and all this kind of stuff. And basically the coordinates do pop up. He grabs them, and they run out of there in order to try to get home and get to Atten. They are chased by X-Wings, and for some reason he convinces these kids to shoot at X-Wings. They probably just don't know what X-Wings are, I guess, which is weird because they know what Jedi are. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff they know and don't know, so it just kind of depends. But
their knowledge base is very Old Republic.
Yeah, very, very Old Republic is kind of where it seems to be. So anyway, so yeah, and that's did I miss anything in there, Dan, or is that pretty much about it? So,
no, that pretty much sums up where we are and what we established. I think that the one scene that like just establishes all kinds of things, takes care of a lot of stuff, is when the kids insist that he goes back for SM-33.
Yeah,
because you're not going to go to all the trouble of creating this awesome John Silver.
Yeah, and then just leave him there. Yeah,
for your pirate show, and then just have him get killed in the second episode.
Yeah.
You need. That's probably one of the best characters in the show is SM-33. I mean, this is what sells it as a pirate show. This is definitely John Silver. Yeah. This is a Treasure Island riff.
Yeah,
and he's very fun. Also, we established quite a few things here. We established very clearly, without a doubt, that he is the captain we saw at the beginning of the show. We established how much time has passed from that first sequence of the show, because that first sequence of the show, there's a pirate raid. They only get one credit. And then we go to the kids on their planet. By the time they find him in that jail cell, we have no idea how long he's been in that jail cell. Has it been years, decades, months, days? Well, we find out it hasn't been very long, because when he goes back, he talks to that pirate. We find out that he is awaiting trial.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been very long. So it establishes that. It gets SM-33 back. It establishes he's a pirate captain. And it also establishes that he is not working in conjunction with the other pirates, which you could have thought maybe that's what was happening, that they planted him in the prison before they sent them down to flush out where Atten is, that they were all working in cahoots. But you very clearly established that that's not going on. So like a lot of legwork gets done in this one very short scene.
Yeah.
That was, and you do know that he's out for the money because he says, I finally had the big score lined up.
Yep. Exactly.
So yeah. So, and I'm still not totally convinced that he's not force sensitive, or at least have some.
No, he's a force wielder. I mean, I believe he's a force wielder. It just is exactly what level of force wielder, because you don't necessarily have to be a Jedi to be force sensitive. You don't necessarily have to be a Jedi or be trained to be able to use it. And then we see a lot of different, especially in recent Disney projects, we've seen a lot of people who have been able to utilize the force in different ways through different crafts. We've seen a lot of witchcraft, a lot of other things like that. So it's really hard to know what angle they're going to take with this. But there is like zero doubt in my mind that before the end of this show he'll pick up a lightsaber. There's zero doubt in my mind. Okay, so like it kind of feels like it's an inevitability at some point, but it's kind of funny because he's trying to work these kids saying that he's a Jedi, and then he's walking around with a blaster, you know what I mean, which should have been like the big key, because Jedi don't use blasters. So yeah, that was kind of a thing. But I was I really do like the show so far. I think that it's good. There are a few things that we can get into, but for the most part, I'm not weeping uncontrollably about it.
Yeah, I think that his attitude towards SM-33 actually kind of adds to the idea that maybe he's a Jedi.
Yeah,
because people don't like remember this, like, you know, well, a lot of Star Wars nerds do, but it's kind of been left to the wayside in the Disney era. But the Jedi were always very dismissive and distrustful of droids. Like the only Jedi we ever see that really cares for droids in any way is Anakin.
Oh, Anakin,
yeah. Anakin likes his droids, you know what I'm saying? He created C-3PO. He cares about him. He cares about R2-D2. But like Obi-Wan hates droids. Like he doesn't trust them. He doesn't like dealing with them. He doesn't.
Well, it's the first thing. It's the first thing that Luke says to him. He goes, "This is your droid," and he goes, "I don't remember owning a droid. Remember? That's
that's any kind. Yeah, they just don't. You know, they're almost like Mandalorians in that way. Like those two sects, they just really don't trust droids. They don't put trust in it. So that led me to believe that maybe he is connected to the Jedi in some way. And yes, I mean, so far this show, like I'm really enjoying it. And that's the thing. I feel like I don't know. I feel like generationally, I don't know if it's going to find the young audience, because I feel like it's made for me when I was 9 is who this is made for. And 9-year-olds today don't have the same interests that I had when I was.
Yeah, I mean, every kid when we were kids, Dan, every kid would run out to the swing set and run to the top of the slide and pretend they were on a pirate ship. I mean, this is made for kids that did what we do. And, you know, and they would use the steering wheel and pretend they're, I mean, that every kid, I had a pirate birthday party when I was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like I loved pirate stuff. Pirate stuff is one of those things that just reaches out and grabs a certain generation. And I feel like our generation really was big with it. And it wasn't just because of the Goonies. There was a lot of stuff that was pumped up when we were kids. Peter Pan was really pumped up when we were kids. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff, you know, at Disney World, they always had the Pirates of the Caribbean. And so the imagination was always there. And if you insert that into the Star Wars realm, it's always going to be something that's going to be interesting. So I feel like that I'm with you. It feels like something that just kind of is the perfect blend and the perfect marriage for a certain sect of the kids that kind of do that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how I feel like this is going to find its audience somewhere, you know?
Yeah. Cause I mean, this kid plays with action figures.
Yeah.
The most high-tech thing you've seen him play with was at school. The desk appears to be an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
in the episode, and he drew a Jedi with it.
And the
So,
speeder, he had that speeder bike, right?
yeah,
And that was
yeah.
probably the next most high tech thing he used.
Which is like a moped. Like that's like having
Yeah, for him, it's
dirt
like a
bike.
moped. Yeah,
or a
It's
moped. Like this is things that kids used to do. Like these kids are not playing video games. These are not video. So I don't know. I don't know if these generations can relate. I hope they can. I hope there's still kids that play outside and imagine things and have mopeds and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if those kids exist, but yeah, I don't. Is there anything that's really standing out other than the bad CG, which is just it's become.
I've got one thing I do want to address. Okay. And first of all, before we get into this, I want everyone to know exactly how much we've talked positively about the show to this point for 45 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
We have talked nothing but positive about this show. We've said, yeah, there's some bad CG. We've said, yeah, it was a little slow pacing this episode, but for the most part, we're enjoying this show. Okay. A couple of things about me and Dan here. You should know me and Dan do not come from the same background. Okay. As he mentioned, we're a few years apart. And as he mentioned, as you may or may not be familiar, I come from a conservative religious background. Dan is non-religious. We come from different places on this. Okay. But I do feel this is something that we need to address. In that opening episode, all of the parents were single parents, with the exception of, what is that girl's name?
KB. Like
KB. Okay.
Yeah.
KB's parents are two females. Now, two women. Okay. I am not in principle, I'm not opposed to the idea of same-sex couples in Star Wars. Okay. I'm not opposed to the idea of same-sex couples in general. Okay. What I'm opposed to here, because I think particularly in Star Wars, there are things that you can explain, right? We don't know anything about their anatomy. We don't know anything about their reproduction. We don't know anything. I mean, these are alien races for all we know, right? So there's things we don't know. Okay. You can't just make that assumption, but this is something that is a very interesting trend with Star Wars in general, where it looks like they feel the need to start a conversation with parents and kids because of this kind of stuff. And I think it's something that we need to address, because we know some of the stuff that got released publicly that Disney didn't want released publicly from that Zoom meeting that they had not too many years ago. I do think it is something that needs to be addressed. It is something that they also had in the Young Jedi Adventures. They had a girl with two moms there. This is something that Dan brought up last week, and I didn't hear it. Did you go back and hear it in that episode, Dan? I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it in the first two episodes. I
know that you said somebody had brought it up, and I was like,
I didn't hear that. Or some comments somewhere. I didn't see it in the episode.
I once again, like, I can kind of hand wave it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's that big of a deal to the story. I really don't. Okay. But the fact that Disney felt it necessary to do is kind of the thing that I have qualms with. Okay. It feels like they're trying to start, because what I believe that Disney thinks that because the LGBTQ community is marginalized, as they would think, is because these conversations don't start early enough. So they have to insert this stuff into children's content so that people can have the conversations. That's the way it feels like they have. It feels like that's why they think they have to do it. I just don't think that that's a necessary thing. I think that, like I said, I can hand wave it. I don't mind it one way or the other. It just is weird to me that in the show that is the most like children's oriented so far, that they felt the need to do it. I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway,
have we seen, like, I know there was the scene where the parents are together and the droid tells them they cross the barrier, they're screwed. Stop worrying about them, make some more kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, hey, if you go across the barrier, you're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But were Neel's parent that like I don't remember seeing Neel's parents there.
His mom was there. There was
there.
one of them. One of them was there. The other one was not, which made me wonder, was the other one is he a single
parent?
do we have a single parent, or is the other one busy?
Is it a budgetary thing? Like, because
But-
one elephant person is cheaper to put in a scene.
Yeah,
than
but
two
you
elephant
would also
know.
think if it was that important, probably 2 elephant parents would be there if it's like your son is missing. But
Right.
but I don't know. So yeah, that was kind of another thing. That
The single parent thing. The single parent thing is again another very Gen X. And some of these Gen X things that they're doing, I don't know. It's so culturally baked in that I don't know that they're really understanding how Gen X they're making it.
Yeah, it's like when hey, Josh the Homesteader's here. He says,
Hey,
what's up, man?
Hold on, I gotta get there. We go. Hey,
Josh,
Josh,
buddy.
how's it going, man?
Good to see you, brother.
I hope the homestead's doing well.
Yeah,
But so go ahead.
I feel like I do. I feel like I feel like they kind of are trying to, when I think of that scene in The Breakfast Club when he's trying to explain, how his dad abuses him. Do you remember that? He's trying to explain to Emilio Estevez that his dad abuses him and all that kind of stuff. It's just like there's a generation that kind of grew up where it's like, sometimes you don't even really want to see your parents. Sometimes you don't want your parents to know what you're doing. Sometimes and so it's just like, sometimes it's just better to be on your own, doing your own thing kind of thing. Or sometimes it's better to be in trouble so that you don't have to be home. Maybe that's the direction they're going with Fern. I don't know. But yeah, this is definitely a Gen X thing. Like you said, with the single parents that, basically just say, here's your money and we'll see you at the end of the week. And, all that kind of stuff. Don't get in too much trouble. And, so yeah.
Gen X was the first generation that had a large portion of it that were children of divorce.
Yeah.
Gen X is the first generation that had a huge segment that was raised by divorced parents. So when you go back to those Gen X shows like The Goonies or E.T., I mean, Elliot and Gertie and the older, they're being raised by mom. And at one point, Elliot mentions the dad, and the dad is off, vacationing with his new girlfriend. So it's all baked into that 80s vibe. So like, are they trying to be like ET? Do they realize how Gen X they're making it when they make all of these kids single parent families? That's like, I mean, I don't even know if it's prevalent now as it was then. I feel like, like more kids are being raised by 2 parents now than they were then. So just, it's a choice.
It is.
And then I guess they're figuring we have 4.
Yeah.
So we have to have 1 2-parent situation.
Yeah.
But we can't have the traditional nuclear family. We just can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to blend the millennial. We got to blend the millennial with the Gen X. That's what we've got to do for this. Right. So that's kind of the way it felt to me as well. And and once again, the necessity to do this in something that's kind of like supposed to be a kid show is kind of the thing that I take a little bit of exception with, because, I think Disney needs to get away from trying to start the conversation and just kind of let that conversation happen. That's a decision between parents and kids. And a lot of parents, I think, have eliminated Disney content because of that, because they don't want Disney to start those conversations. And so that's the thing that just kind of makes it a little more difficult for someone like me, because I feel like, I should be the one to start those conversations, not when my kid's watching a Star Wars show. But anyway, who am I? I'm just some guy that has 2 kids,
Yeah, it just I'm coming at it as a different thing. It doesn't, it doesn't bother me at all. Not even, but one thing that is kind of troubling is that a company like Disney is willing to compromise these things to make money off of China, let's say.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
they'll delete that scene in China because in
They will.
China,
Yeah.
and they're willing to compromise their outlook for those people and for
Uh-huh.
their cultural limitations.
Mhm.
And yet they're not willing to have the same consideration for you.
Well, and
Or
it's not,
like the
and
people
it's not
that
just that stuff. It's not just that stuff. Okay, it's not just the stuff that we have moral qualms about. They will. I mean, they very famously in The Force Awakens took John Boyega out of the poster. I mean,
Yeah.
for China, and that is something that I don't think they ever gave a very reasonable answer for why they did it. I think everybody can just put two and two together, but that's just one of those things that we really need to examine with Disney. Like, where are the priorities, and what people are you going to make priorities? And I don't know. It just it just kind of seems to me like Disney is more agenda driven in that regard than they need to be. But it was such a minor part of the show that I could just hand wave it. And like I said, this is Star Wars anyway. So, if a kid was watching it with me and asked, I would just be like, oh, aliens, I mean, it is what it is. You can do that. But the fact that it's there and you can see what they're trying to do, that's kind of what bothered me a little bit about it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they have to make sure that they get it into everything.
Yeah.
So it does become a little. Well, and the other thing is, like, you talk about representation, but like you don't get representation anymore of the standard.
Where's the traditional family in this? Where's the traditional family in this episode? I mean, that's kind of the main thing. I mean, maybe Neel is the traditional family and we just didn't see his dad at that meeting, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're left to imply that the only families that stay together are the same sex ones.
That's exactly. Right. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to bring that up and spend too much time on it, but it is something I thought needed to be addressed. But once again, guys, we like the show, and I'm not saying that ruined the show. I'm not saying it made the show bad. I'm not saying it made the show unwatchable. It's just one of those things I just kind of felt was a little unnecessary. The end. Okay.
Yeah. And I do feel like I'm not a shareholder anymore. I used to own shares in Disney, but if you're running a business, I know it's entertainment and some level it is sort of art, but it is mass entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to find the way to appeal to the broadest possible group of people. So in something like this, you should just try to avoid. I feel like it would be easy to avoid controversy, just to not have it come up.
And honestly, who's doing great with that right now is Universal. Universal's doing great with that. When you take a look at what they're doing with Illumination, I mean, how much of that did you see in the Super Mario Brothers movie? How much of that did you see in any of the Minions movies? How much? I mean, and look how successful those movies are. They're blowing Disney animation out of the water. It's just crazy. And unless Disney pours their heart and soul into something like Frozen 2, other than that, Illumination is just blowing them away. And they need to consider that could be the reason for it. They're just not appealing to the masses. People know that they don't have to check that stuff first. They can just take their kids to it. And that's what Disney used to be. That's not what they are now, unfortunately.
Yeah, but again, but this show, we like it so far.
Yeah.
Disney, I don't know, maybe they've turned a corner. Moana 2 is doing big business. Skeleton Crew is actually good.
Inside Out 2, I mean, just came out.
Inside Out 2 was good. They let Deadpool and Wolverine come out.
Yeah.
And it was good. So they're like on a streak of like, but
they're making a lot of money doing really good, so
yeah. And a lot of these things like Skeleton Crew, things like Deadpool and Wolverine, they can't really claim all the credit.
They can't.
No. Skeleton Crew, I could tell Kathleen Kennedy didn't care, so she let them actually make a good show.
Yeah.
If she had her fingers in it, she would have ruined
I'll be in my office, guys. And
then Deadpool and Wolverine. Ryan had to fight them tooth and nail to get to make the movie he wanted and a good
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Mhm.
So, but Moana 2, Inside Out 2. Now, Inside Out 2 is Pixar. So I don't
Mhm.
know how much Pixar has to fight Disney to get their things the way they want them to be. And we did read articles that they had a few moves that they were going to make that would have pushed agenda that they just decided, you know what, let's not do this.
Yeah. Well, and I know that they had major fights with the cast over salary, right? So they had to
Yeah.
recast like everybody, and because
Yeah.
they had to recast everybody because they wanted more money. They wanted way more money than Disney had budgeted. So yeah.
But then Moana 2, though, that is Disney. That is
Mhm.
Disney. Like that's something that they and from all accounts, it's good and it's doing big
Mhm.
business. So some of these other things we can discount as like, it came out under Disney, but Disney's not learning. But maybe Disney is turning a corner. I don't know. Cap 4 is still coming out, so they're ready to crash this plane into a mountain.
You're giving me a twitch. You're giving me a twitch, Dan. I don't know what to think about that movie, but I'm going to be seeing.
It's not good.
I'm going to be seeing that live with our good friend Jonathan, and
Yeah.
I just know it's not gonna be great.
Yeah.
So.
He's still trying to get. I think I will just meet you guys at the theater afterwards. That is still my.
Yeah.
I still believe that's my plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. I always think to myself that I'm gonna like. Absolutely despise something, and I'll probably find two or three things that I like about it. But what in the world happened here?
Yeah, your internet is getting choppy, Tim.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You were, yeah.
No, it's because the other browser popped up. The other browser popped up and it interrupted everything. But anyway,
Okay.
I was saying, yeah, I'm probably going to find something that I like about that movie, but I don't think I'm going to like the movie in general. So we'll see. But I don't know.
But anyway, as far as Skeleton Crew is, this is what they should have been doing the whole time. I was going to keep saying that.
Yeah. Removed from the rest of the Star Wars universe, make your own story, original characters, nothing that you're screwing up as far as the Star Wars universe so far. I mean, this is what they need to be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's for kids, but not just for kids. It's interesting enough to keep old fans watching it, but young enough slanted that you could hopefully get a new generation of Star Wars fans. Which again, they should have been doing this from the beginning instead of losing and infuriating your first generation of fans, because the new generation of fans is going to come from, having their parents show them this stuff. Like, hey, you need to watch Star Wars and come watch Star Wars with me. This would be doing so much better if they had not spent so much time burning their old fan base.
Yeah.
Because all these parents and grandparents that would have been showing their kids this show are just still mad that they watched The Acolyte. So,
but not just The Acolyte, right? They're mad with what happened with Boba Fett and with what happened with Obi-Wan and with what happened with season 3 of The Mandalorian and
Rise
Ahsoka.
of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. And there's just been so much, man, where it just feels like we got to a point where everything that was going to be introduced was going to be cheap. It was going to be poorly done. It was going to be universe destroying. It was going to tear down things that we thought we knew for decades. That's what it felt like. It felt like this is what Star Wars is going to be from now on. And this just proved you don't have to do that. I think that's the interesting thing. So far, now it's early. It's only episode 3 out of 8, but so far they have not done any of that in this. They have just tried to make an interesting story. That's what you should have done from the very beginning. Start with a story, insert it into the Star Wars universe, and that's interesting enough for most people. You don't have to tie in characters and worlds and change things. You don't have to do that, man. Right. And That's the thing. Like the thing that Disney has done with every Star Wars project so far, every single thing, they have felt the need to change what the Force does in every project. Show us something that we've never seen before with the Force. It's almost like it was a prerequisite for Kathleen Kennedy. Well, what are you going to show me from the Force in this project that we've never seen before? They haven't done that so far. And that's amazing because we don't care. We know what the Force is. We know what the Force is capable of. We don't need to see a new thing that the Force can do. We don't need to see that. You don't need to show me Force projection. You don't need to show me the thread and the power of many. You don't need to show me, that Force can read minds and do all. You don't need to show me all that. Okay, just give me an interesting and compelling story. Put it in space, and I'll love it because I'm a nerd. That's what we do. So, anyway, So
So, I think that pretty much covers Skeleton Crew for this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I hope they keep going on this track, and we have a fun show for once. Did you have anything else in the world of nerd that we needed? Any pressing issues that we needed to hit on?
No, we didn't. But Dan just brought something up to me in text this week, and I want everybody who might know anything about it to go ahead and bring it up. There is a masterpiece for Christmas that nobody watches anymore. Okay. And it is the original 1986 brilliant masterpiece starring the one and only Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves, Babes in Toyland. Okay. Dan sent me a message and said, "Have you seen this stupid movie?" And I'm like, "Of course. I used to have the VHS. To this day, it's the reason that I can spell the word Cincinnati. It's an amazing movie. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't. You will have fun." Okay? The end.
Send all of your angry comments and emails directly.
It's a terrible movie. Okay, it's a terrible movie, but you will laugh the whole time. Okay, so yes,
yeah. All right. So that being said, it's the holiday season. If you don't catch us next week, we'll be here next week. But if we don't see you again before then, Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Like, share, and subscribe.